Hi, today we're going to quickly go over the lessons from the textbook over lessons 9.1 through 9.3. I want to make sure this is recording. Okay, it says it's recording. All right, now we have postulate 8, which is called the area postulate, and it is another combo type of situation. It tells us two different things. At first, it tells us that when you have area, it always has to be a positive number. You can't have negative area. And the next part says congruent triangles have equal areas. So again, that's pretty common sense. Just whenever you're justifying that two triangles have the same area and they're congruent, you're just going to reference postulate 8, and we'll do that here in a second. And the second part is whenever you have a big weird shape that usually, you did this like in middle school, you break it down into smaller shapes that are easier to deal with, and you find each of those areas, and then you just add up all those parts, and you know the area of the big weird shape. So the area of a polygonal region is equal to the sum of each of the non-overlapping parts. So you're going to do that on tonight's homework, actually. I'm going to give you a picture of this house that looks kind of like a barn. And on the left and right side, it's kind of a weird shape. And you're going to break it into like a triangle, a trapezoid, and rectangle, and find all those areas, and then add them all up to get the total area. All right, so your book will also talk about these two little symbols. And the first one means the area of, and the second one means the perimeter of. And, it kind of looks like an A and it kind of looks like a P. So, just make sure you understand those. And we're going to use those right here. Now, when you see this, you read this: the area of triangle ABC is equal to the area of triangle DCDA. So that's where I labeled it 1 and 2. Those two are equal to each other. And we know that they're congruent because they're congruent by side, side, side. So congruent triangles have congruent areas. And this is postulate 8, which I already have written in. Now, the entire big four-sided shape is the area of that is equal to the area of the two smaller triangles. And so that is the second part of the area postulate, postulate 8. You can break it into smaller figures and then add them together. Okay, so second lesson. Again, this is all stuff that we went over already. We're just rehashing it because we're going to introduce the theorems, postulates, and corollaries. All right, postulate 9. This talks about rectangles. Now, the way he words this is the area of a rectangle is the product of its base and altitude. Well, guys, an altitude is an height. So I just use the formula B times H. We did this the other day. And the B and the H always have to come together and make a right angle. Okay. Now, the corollary says if it's a square, you just take the side and you square. And again, we did this the other day. We know technically you could do base times height because it's, because technically a base and height are the same thing as the two sides, but since the sides are the same, you can just square it. All right, so we can go through these pretty fast today. So if you need to pause it and write anything down, you can. And lastly, we have the triangles. Now, Harold does a tricky thing here on Theorem 38. Now, keep in mind you're doing this in a proof. If you're referencing a right triangle, you have to use Theorem 38. And if it's not a right triangle, you have to use Theorem 39. And again, he likes to use the words altitude, which is the same thing as a height again. And we already have this formula, 1/2 base times height. Now, for Theorem 38, he says it's the product of the legs. And I drew a little picture here. And the legs actually are the base and height. So it's exactly what we've been doing if I just have you find just the area. And you'll just have to distinguish between the two theorems if it's a right triangle or not. And lastly, we have the corollary to 39, which says if you have triangles with equal bases and equal altitudes, then they have equal areas, which of course they do. It is kind of cool though to see how they look so different and they have the same areas. So I just threw some numbers in here. Both have bases of 10, both have heights of 8, both have the same areas of 40. So actually pretty good and easy lesson because we covered everything already. And you're going to now go and do the book work, which is really on Canvas now. You're going to go finish that. I think there's 10 questions and there's a house worksheet and there's like four or five questions. Please join a session if you need any help or send me a message on Canvas. Thanks.